So what's up with this song Little Rabbit Foo Foo? Because now I've learned that many of the nursery rhymes that we grew up with, like I taught my brother these nursery rhymes, like this is for kids. I can't quite understand like Knickerbocker, Old Man Tucker, or whatever. All the stuff didn't make any sense, but oh, this is fun. I guess we're passing along information. Ah, pretty maids all in a row. Queen Mary, Queen of Scots. She wasn't the Queen of England. Somebody said that on the internet recently. Mary was the Queen of the Scots. Bloody Mary. Queen Elizabeth was always the Queen of England. Queen Mary was the Queen of the Scots. She was the Catholic one. She did a lot of terrible things. I'm going to tell you she did. She did do terrible things. Elizabeth was no Peace Prize herself. You know, she may have granted her Nobel to Trump as well. She just didn't have a lot of goodness in her. Of course, you know, her dad was King Henry VIII. But I remember she knelt down and prayed to God when she learned that she was going to be the queen. And I take that to heart, that she really earnestly desired to be a good ruler and a good monarch. I remember, you know, history teachers, they have, you know, all these teachers, they have their little, I'm going to get my point of view across no matter what. They have their little screed they want to tell you. Well, in the 8th grade, and in America, that's like maybe you're 13 or 14 years old in the 8th grade. When I hid under the desk in the 1st grade, I was only 5 years old because I had a tyrannical teacher. So I wasn't like a 15-year-old stoner. I was hiding. This lady was horrible because I had had such a nice kindergarten teacher the first half of the year. And then the second half of the year, this horrible lady, this Miss Scatcherd type person, is so cruel to me that I start hiding under my desk because of anxiety. My goodness, I was only 5 years old, so when I say 1st grade, I mean I was a baby. I was a little baby. I didn't wet my pants. I didn't do anything like that. Well, sometimes when I was napping, I would wet my pants, apparently. That's one of the things the babysitters complained about. Why do I always have to take a nap? You know, I'm not tired. Like, why are you always putting me in adult beds to take a nap? That is something we need to investigate, folks. Generation X, let's look it up. Maybe I was peeing in the bed because I didn't want to be molested by adults. I don't know. You know, because there's something, something not quite right. But we endeavor to remain on topic. These nursery rhymes are telling us some very terrible things, and fairy tales are telling us terrible things. I mean, weren't the fairy tales horrific enough? Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf eats the grandmother, and the huntsman has to cut the grandmother out of the wolf's stomach. That's the original thing. It's just like so disgusting. It is. But I told my kids these stories, but I would sanitize them. I didn't want to tell them the truth. Because, you know, when I was a little girl, I had access to the library. You know, that was sort of a refuge. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. I would go to the library and I would take books off the shelf. And one time I got a volume of Grimm's fairy tales, and how grim those tales were. Oh yeah, they were. They were pretty grim. I'm glad that Disney sanitized these tales for us. As much as you want to criticize Disney. I think Cinderella was a great movie. I think Snow White was scary. It was scary. But in the end, good triumphs. I'm going to cry now. I cried recently. If you can't tell, I have a cold. So, yeah, it's not fun, but I think the drainage is abating a bit. Oh, in the end, the prince comes to take her away. That, to me, that would be Jesus, that prince, the Prince of Peace. I'm gonna cry. So, I can't sing because I have a cold. It's terrible. I would love to sing. I absolutely can't do it. Someday my prince will come. And I actually thought that when I was in the 7th grade. And I was going through so much depression after my parents' divorce. It was it was like a nuclear thing. It was my Hiroshima, my parents' divorce. And by the way, Democrats bombed Japan. It wasn't Republicans. It was Democrats. A Republican never would have done that. So stop. Why you keep voting Democrat? Duh. Because white people are racists. Christians are terrible. That was a terrible thing. I never said that was right. I said that's wrong. Because we heard that in our history class. Well, we were doing the Japanese people a favor by dropping a nuclear bomb on them. Not just one, but two. Because they never would have stopped fighting. They would have all perished if we had not bombed them. What a terrible thing to do to human beings. But then you look back. Karma is karma. Ah. Oh, now this Christian is talking about karma. I have a right to use that term as much as you do. So, figure it out. What did they do to Christians in Japan? What did they do? I'm not saying the Spanish and the Portuguese were good people, and I did watch Shogun, so that gives you sort of a distorted, perhaps, perspective. Shogun, the miniseries. Well done. Absolutely. Well done. Toshiro Mifune as Lord Toranaga, Richard Chamberlain, and then Lady Mariko. It was a beautiful, spectacular, made-for-TV film. Multi-part made-for-TV film. But that never sat well with me. I was taught that in history class. Everybody has their little screed. Everybody has their little... Now, don't tell me that public school teachers don't have an agenda. They do. They really do. And to tell me that we saved the Japanese people from annihilating themselves by dropping nuclear bombs on them. But then, the Bataan Death March, they were very cruel. They're extremely cruel. Compare Japan back then to North Korea today. Yeah, They were not. But Christians wouldn't do that. A Christian would not do that. So I'm saying that was really wrong. I know Pearl Harbor, but Pearl Harbor is one thing, but this is just overreacting big time. It really, I'm telling you. But what did they do? They went even into the continent, and what they did, the atrocities that they did. I'm sorry, karma, gonna get you every time, man. Whoever you are listening, thank you. If you believe in karma is gonna come true. It will. You did some nasty, horrible things. You crucified Christians when the Portuguese and the Spanish came over and tried to... Of course, they would turn you into the Philippines. Of course you want to keep these people out, because look what they've done to Latin America. What a hellhole that is. Yeah, that's what they'll do to you. But you actually took Japanese people and you crucified them. You did such atrocities. You horrible. You are North Korea. And now, no, we're nice. We make cartoons. Whatever. You never, ever, ever, ever. My dad said to me, yes, my dad was in his right mind, if he ever was, but when he was supposedly, sorry, he said they hauled all these Germans before the International Court in Nuremberg. And they sentenced these Nazis to death. The Japanese never, ever, 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 ever were made accountable for the sins that they committed, the atrocities that they committed during World War II. Well, we're just fun. We just like to take pictures. That's why there's something about Boy George. It's like there's some kind of a Japanese connection there. Like, move, move. I can't sing. I told you I have a cold. Move away from me, darling. And there's this like Japanese-looking guy taking pictures. I'm telling you, there's some connection there. But I digress. This person, I believe it was the 5th grade. And that's another sad thing. Happened to my daughter. I was making friends in school. I had found a friend. I had found a confidant. And then the next grade, you get assigned to a different teacher. So I believe it was the 5th grade. And that's when I got a wonderful homeroom teacher. A pregnant Nazarene lady. She was pregnant. And she was managing all these kids. And these kids, some of them were a bit unruly, I can tell you that. And sometimes I would get mad at her because she'd get angry, and I'd be angry at her, but that's how kids react in an institution. You get angry at the person who's trying to discipline you. She was a good-hearted lady, and she said, one of the kids asked her a question, what's the true religion? She said, well, I don't know, but I think the Nazarene church is the best church to go to. She really was a kind-hearted lady. I didn't have my best friend in the 5th grade. In the 4th grade, we were 2 peas in a pod. We were scolded for giggling during class. Maybe that's why they separated us. That's really sad. That's what institutions do to people. So in the 5th grade, she had a different homeroom teacher. 5th grade is when you start moving around, like maybe you're 10 or something. You're moving around from place to place. Some people are 11. Her homeroom teacher was a bizarre person. She taught the kids to say this terrible song, like disgusting songs, like Little Rabbit. I'm going to repeat this because this is what I heard. And we went to visit that classroom one time, and I was absolutely astounded that you would be teaching, I don't know if it was the 4th grade or the 5th grade, you would be teaching little children such terrible songs. Little Rabbit Foo Foo walking through the forest, picking up the field mice and bashing him on the head. And then you'd have to like bang your fist down on the desk, bashing him on the head. What is there a hidden message here? Like, what the heck is going on with Little Rabbit Foo Foo? And the teacher teaching this to children. We should be learning, my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. They started to displace. They crept in very slowly. They crept in. They creeped in. These creepers, they did. They infiltrated our educational institutions. If you start to make friends with somebody, they're going to catch you. Well, we're going to put a stop to that. I'm telling you, folks. What's up with little Rabbit Foo Foo? Well, if I had if you were like an attractive black man, you could have a lot of videos and a lot of fans. Well, I'm not an attractive black man. I'm just a voice without a face. Does anybody remember Little Rabbit Foo Foo? And how weird that is. And I'm sorry, I thought that there was a redemptive theme in these fairy tales. In the end, good triumphed over evil. Whether it would be Cinderella or Snow White or Rapunzel. That was the redemptive aspect of fairy tales. But Little Rabbit Foo Foo was just inciting people to violence. And then we see the grandchildren of that sort of a person who infiltrated our educational system. Just people trying to go to a restaurant, trying to get some food, trying to go to the bathroom, calling them terrible names. Excuse me, that's not acceptable. We need to have a polite culture. Now, you would think Singapore is a polite culture, but look what happened. This crazy man ambushed the stars of Wicked. I'm not a fan of the Wicked franchise, of course, but this crazy guy, and he's like wearing some kind of like a Jesus banner, and he just like jump scares the blonde girl. Of course, that's pretty racist, and that's why they put up with it, because he's being pretty racist. Why? This man has not done it just once. I mean, he's done it multiple times, and they always let him out to do another jump scare. He always does another prank. See, that's not right. This is very passive-aggressive behavior, I think. Don't let this man do it. This man he really needs to be put in jail for 10 years, or someplace for 10 years where he can't hurt people, where he needs to learn a new trade, a skill, not a college degree necessarily. I'm not sure that would help him, but let him learn a trade. Is he going to do it again? I was really shocked, because I'm not a fan of either of those ladies, in particular the blonde lady. I'm not a fan of hers, but the guy just jump scares her. A terrible thing. What a terrible thing. So, I do think that Asian societies are very hypocritical because they're so passive-aggressive. And I have to say, I'm not a fan of subtlety. Neither am I a fan of barbarity. How are we going to come to an understanding as a society? These people, will you please shut down the bank accounts? You know who these people are protesting. Will you please just put a freeze on their access to funds until we find out where these funds are coming from? Because this is a criminal organization. It is a mafia. The mafia is the family. Yeah, I told you. This is part 2 of my... the disintegration of the American family. They have family that's paying them. Why do we not freeze their bank accounts? Why do we not interfere with their hotel reservations? Why do we not shut our doors to them if they come in and try to buy goods? Even, if they need water, put water outside. If they need bread, throw some bread loaves outside. Don't give them maxi pads. Don't give them tampons. They can ask Tim for the tampons. There you go. Why are we being so Minnesota nice? But I guess it sort of, we can trace it back to how education went wrong in America. And Little Rabbit Foo Foo is the illustration of that. I'm traumatized by that song because I love rabbits, and rabbits wouldn't hurt field mice. And certainly bashing field mice on the head is not a funny thing. But to that teacher, she wanted to teach us violence. She was preaching violence. You could say it's subtle. You could do it to little kids. Oh, that's just funny. Ha 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 ha. It's disgusting. Yes, I will entitle this message, America, when did its educational institutions go awry? Awry. Can you look it up? IWRY. Awry.